Welcome everyone. So today we're going to be seeing a presentation from Sarah Killingsworth. She's a San Francisco Bay Area-based California naturalist, Project Coyote wildlife educator, and conservation photographer. She's a frequent public speaker about coexistence with wildlife, particularly native predators. Her photography has been published in local and national media, in print and online. She loves coyotes, foxes, and bobcats, and hopes that sharing her photos will inspire others to love and protect these amazing animals. Sarah, all yours.
All right, thank you so much, Benicio. I want to thank Benicio and his family for hosting and organizing this day of service for new Trier students and their families, benefiting causes that are near and dear to my personal heart, as well as Project Coyote. I also want to thank everyone who is attending this presentation. I appreciate you taking your Saturday morning and learning a little bit more about coexistence and ways that you can make a difference. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so Project Coyote is a Northern California based, but nationwide efforts to promote coexistence between people and wildlife. Benicio gave me a lovely introduction. I've got a few more things about me and ways you can see other photos and learn about me. Something that's not listed here, but you might be interested in. In addition to being a wildlife educator, am actually a publicly elected trustee of a kindergarten through 8th grade public school district here in Northern California. So I'm passionate about education and youth generally, not just wildlife education. So today we are talking about native predators in Illinois. We have a few species that we're going to talk about more in depth, and there's some others that are relatively uncommon. And we're going to talk about a couple different specific things related to predators, but I always like to start with an overall discussion of native predators. So in Illinois, you have coyotes, you have red foxes and gray foxes, and you have bobcats. And the image on your screen is a gray fox kit. So it's a young gray fox. Red foxes has an asterisk next to it because there's some debate as to whether red foxes are in fact native. They are very widespread, and there's some suggestion that in parts of the US, they were brought over with European settlers. And so they've been here for a long time, but there's an open question about whether they're native. In California, we do actually have some relatively rare subspecies of red fox that are native. In addition, in Illinois, there are occasionally mountain lions, black bears, and wolves, but I'm not going to address those because they're not typically part of what people see. Okay, so today I have a relatively short amount of time. My presentations often take a full hour. I'm going to try and do what I'm going to say in about half an hour to make sure we have plenty of time for questions. So if you do have questions, you can put them in the chat or in the question and answer, but I'm going to take them all at the end, and Benicio is going to help me facilitate me taking those questions. I'm also happy to answer emails, questions after the fact if we run out of time. I know you have a packed schedule for today. So ways that you can help native predators in Illinois. There's two things really we're going to focus on today. One is there happens to be some pending legislation, which I was super excited to find because bobcats, their Latin name is Lynx rufus, and they are my personal favorite species, although I love all the native predators. There's currently a pending ban on bobcat hunting and trapping that's in the Illinois legislature right now. And then the second piece is the advocating for and educating people about a ban on wildlife killing contests, specifically in Illinois. But if I can convey one thing to you all today, as much as I love predators, what I would want you to know is how much your voice matters, how much students, teens, young adults, your comments, your voice is hugely influential with adults. Many adults are intimidated or don't have the time to speak up on policy issues. And as students, you have an incredible amount of impact. So I want to encourage you to find issues and topics that you're passionate about that light you up. And if it's wildlife coexistence and protecting native predators, that's awesome. But whatever it is, you have power and a voice, and your opportunity to use it is huge. So I would encourage you to do that no matter what the issue. In terms of our species that we're going to talk about, the first one I want to talk about is what I mentioned, my favorite, bobcats. So this is a bobcat kitten. Bobcats are native to Illinois, as I mentioned. They actually were a threatened species. So many predators were killed in huge numbers as the settlers moved west from the East Coast and through the Midwest. Settlers viewed native predators like coyotes and bobcats and mountain lions and wolves as competition. They were a threat, they thought, to game species that they wanted to kill. They were a threat, they thought, to their livestock, and at times were viewed as vermin. Many states had bounties, and people were paid actually to kill native predators. Not surprisingly, the result of all of that is that predator populations plummeted. So we used to have 2.5 million wolves in this country, and now we have 2,500. Bobcats used to be widespread with healthy populations in most states. There's throughout the continental United States, the lower 48. In many states, however, they ended up either being eradicated or being listed as endangered or threatened species. They were threatened species in Illinois until 1999. Surprisingly to me, in 2016, they made it legal again to hunt or trap bobcats for a part of the year. So just shows you how humans can think, okay, the population is recovered sufficiently, now we're going to start hunting them again, even though for more than 100 years, the population was seriously in trouble. So I was thrilled to see in February of 2021, Representative Daniel Didek introduced a bill that would make hunting and trapping bobcats illegal. We already have those laws here in the state of California. My understanding, looking at the bill's history, is that it's currently in front of the House Rules Committee. But I would encourage you, when you speak to these representatives or write letters, that you encourage them to support this bill. I included some numbers. So there have been 4 hunting seasons where bobcat hunting has been allowed. And if you add up those numbers, you'll see that that's more than 1,000 bobcats that have been killed in those 4 years. And the estimate that I found of the current total population in the state of bobcats is just 5,000 animals. So to me, it's incredible that a valuable species in the ecosystem, one of the top predators, would be allowed to be killed in these numbers when there's no reason to do so. They're not a game species. And most of the time, bobcat hunting and trapping, the trapping is for fur. And one of the most compelling arguments in California in banning the trapping was that bobcats are economically worth more alive than they are for fur, because the payment for a pelt is oftentimes less than $100 per animal. And tourism and wildlife observation and wildlife photography actually generates far more revenue for areas that have bobcats than the trapping would provide for the people who would hunt and kill them. And the state receives relatively small amounts of money for the license to kill them. So I would encourage you all to support that ban. The other species we talk about when we talk about wildlife killing contests, and the subjects of those contests vary state by state. So I looked at the contests in Illinois, and we're going to talk about them, but foxes and coyotes seem to be the primary targets. So this is a gray fox kit. And gray foxes are actually, they used to be prevalent in Illinois. Their populations are also dwindling. This is a red fox, which, as I mentioned, may or may not be native, but they actually are now more prevalent than gray foxes in Illinois. And lastly, this is a young coyote. And you can usually tell a little bit about the age of a coyote because the young coyotes, their ears are really big proportionally to the rest of their face, and their faces tend to be very thin. They haven't quite filled out the same way as an adult coyote. So there are a number of wildlife killing contests in Illinois, and I've got a screen that's got a map up, Most of these are coyote killing contests, and only the Southern Illinois Predator Challenge listed foxes as well as coyotes. Because the fox population is now dropping in the state, the last year or two, they have not included foxes in their contest. So it is now a coyote killing contest as well. I have a really hard time with graphic images that are the result of these coyote killing contests and other wildlife killing contests, but I do want to just share that this is the kind of just waste of life that is the result of a wildlife killing contest, and particularly a coyote killing contest. The Chicago Tribune in 2017 did an editorial saying that coyote killing contests were poor sport. So let's talk about why should we ban coyote killing contests and wildlife killing contests. First, it's a blood sport, and there is no moral reason that you can think of that it is acceptable to simply kill as many of a living thing as you can because you have a gun. They glorify violence, and there's one of the Illinois contests is actually a contest for children. We've banned cockfighting and dogfighting in this country as cruel, and that it's not acceptable to kill living things for our own entertainment. Wildlife killing contests are no better. What's been interesting to me is working on this issue is how many hunters are really supportive of wildlife killing contest bans, because they see wildlife killing contests as completely unethical and unsportsmanlike. So it is not the kind of thing that people who are ethical hunters, who are careful in what they take, who eat and use things like deer and elk or duck, other things that they're consuming. The idea that people would just go out and indiscriminately kill as many animals as possible. And I think most of you have watched the film Killing Games. And so I didn't define wildlife killing contests at the outset. Just say that a wildlife contest is an event in which participants are encouraged to kill either as many animals as possible or to kill the largest animal for prizes. And those prizes can be belt buckles, monetary prizes, a gun, but there's some reward for killing the most animals. And like I said, the species that are targets varies by state. Illinois is primarily based, the contests are primarily about coyotes. So another argument against wildlife killing contests is that they fly in the face of what's called the public trust doctrine. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but the public trust doctrine started actually in Byzantine law, but it is a common law concept which suggests that the sovereign or the government holds in trust for all of the public things like clean air and water and navigatable waters. So if you've ever heard that that even private property holders can't keep people off of the shore up to the high tide line, that's public property, that's under this public trust doctrine. And actually one of the first big cases in the US on this issue was in Illinois, in the harbors, because they tried to grant private rights to a railroad. So one of the pieces of the public trust doctrine is to protect the wildlife and natural resources that are in these public lands and in the common areas. So when you look at native predators and killing them, you might say, well, so what? There's lots of them. But if you've studied ecosystems in biology or other classes, you know that it is impossible when you look at an ecosystem to take one piece of it and dramatically change the number of that animal or that species. It could be a plant, could even be the amount of water that that ecosystem receives. But as soon as you change a lever in an ecosystem, you impact everything else in that ecosystem. And so predators serve as a control on rodent populations, and when you eliminate a predator, you often create a situation where something else moves in. So, or you create a problem with bobcats, depending on where they are, tend to eat rabbits and rodents. On the East Coast, they tend to also take down deer fawns. But if you take them out, something else may come in. And that's exactly what happened with the eradication of wolves in this country. Coyotes moved into that niche because the top predator, the wolves, had been eliminated. So it's not scientifically sound to take a functioning ecosystem and dramatically reduce the numbers of a particular animal, for example, like bobcats. Sometimes people argue that wildlife killing contests are in fact a wildlife management technique, that there is a purpose to it. And there's actually no scientific evidence that that's true. So when you think about a wildlife killing contest, there's a location, people go out, they have their weapons, and they kill whatever coyote or fox or bobcat, depending on where we're talking about. In Illinois, let's say they kill a coyote. They kill whichever one they find. They don't know the age of that animal, whether it has young, whether it's the alpha in a pack. It's just being killed because it's the one that's near them. So there's no scientific basis that suggests that that serves any wildlife management purpose whatsoever. It's indiscriminate killing of animals. So now I'm going to talk about a few of the myths around wildlife killing contests. So as I mentioned, from a scientific standpoint, there is no basis for coyote killing contests. And this is a statement that was signed by more than 70 conservation scientists opposing coyote killing contests and saying that it is unjustified and there is no scientific basis for doing so. So one of the myths that people hear is that wildlife killing contests will increase the abundance of game species. And the fact is that while predators do eat birds and rabbits, as I mentioned, in fact, bobcats will take birds too, that's not what would cause a decline in a game species. So I don't know if any of you have ever played, there's a game we sometimes play with school-age kids called Oh Dear. And it's a system where you have different species and you increase or decrease the number of students who are that species and see whether the other species is then able to survive. The short version is that game requires habitat and requires a food source. And so the existence of predators is usually not a limiting factor on the game population. It has to do more with whether they have adequate food and water and adequate habitat. So wildlife killing contests don't do anything about changing any of those things. Sometimes people say, well, we need wildlife killing contests to protect either people or their pets. And the truth is that, as I mentioned, the diet of most of the predators that we're talking about is rodents and rabbits. So coyotes, bobcats, foxes will take small rodents and rabbits, sometimes take a deer fawn, but their preferred food source is not pets. And there was a study in Chicago that when they looked at human-associated food sources for coyotes, found that only 2% of their diet was actually garbage, and only 1% was domestic cat. So even in an area like Chicago, it's not their preferred food source. And there have been studies in California of bobcat diets, and they actually have found 0% of either dogs or cats in the bobcat diet. So even if these animals are interacting, it is not a food source. It is not their primary or even a desired way to get food. In terms of protecting humans, it's probably even a bigger stretch because human attacks are very, very, very rare. Coyotes and bobcats, and certainly foxes don't, but even to the extent there have been human interactions where a coyote or a bobcat, and I like the word attack particularly because it feels very strong and aggressive, but usually what happens is if a bobcat or a coyote behaves aggressively towards a human with either scratching or nipping, and it's even less common with bobcats than coyotes, but typically the cause of that behavior is that somebody has fed that animal. So humans actually create a coexistence problem every time they feed an animal, and people have lots of different rationales for why they leave food out or give food. But when you habituate a bobcat or a coyote to receiving food from humans, you interrupt their ability to find their own food, and you create an expectation that humans are a source of food. And so those animals then do sometimes approach other people, not the same person who's been feeding them, and hope to get food from them. And so the problem in terms of conflict is actually a human created problem, and wildlife killing contests don't do anything to prevent that type of interaction. Another myth about wildlife killing contests is that they protect livestock. And I've got on the slide a statistic from the USDA that carnivores, all carnivores, so that's everything that was on the first slide, right? Mountain lions, bears, wolves, coyotes, foxes, bobcats, all carnivores, less than 0.5% of sheep and cattle mortality in that year. It's a tiny, tiny amount. Things like weather, birthing problems, and disease are responsible for most livestock losses. Another myth, and this one is sometimes hard for people to wrap their heads around, but that wildlife killing contests will reduce coyote numbers. And in fact, killing contests can increase coyote numbers and increase conflict with wildlife. So I'm going to show a diagram that explains how by killing some coyotes, you can actually create a larger population of coyotes. So you have to understand that coyotes are, like wolves, are social animals and live in a pack. So in a pack, there is an alpha pair. That alpha pair is generally the only pair that reproduces. So even though there are other males and females as part of that social group, it's only the alpha pair that will have pups each year. What happens if that pack is disrupted by indiscriminate killing and one of the alphas is killed? You often find that that pack splits and several of the individuals, the adults in that pack, find new mates. And so you end up, instead of having one mating pair, you could have 3 or 4 mating pairs come out of that pack. Another thing which they've shown, which is fascinating to me, is that when coyote populations are under pressure from things like wildlife killing contests and suffering mortality, they actually have larger litters of pups. So in addition to having more pairs reproducing, you end up with larger litter sizes of coyote pups. So you can see if you look at these different graphics, how what would have been a stable group of 8 coyotes that might have had 3 pups becomes 4 pairs of coyotes, each having perhaps as many as 5 or 6 pups. And you've now, instead of decreasing the population of coyotes, you've increased the population of coyotes. The other thing that sometimes people don't understand or don't think about is that, again, because wildlife killing contests are indiscriminate, you can be killing off the adults in a pack and leaving younger members. That means in terms of conflict with humans or interacting with humans, those young are not being taught by their adult or more mature members of the pack how to find food, and may end up in a situation where they're closer to humans and either pursuing garbage or chickens or other things that are close to humans because they don't know how to hunt, and some of the adults that would have shown them have now been eradicated. So killing contests do not help reduce coyote numbers, and in fact can lead to increased conflict. So how do we still have wildlife killing contests anywhere, let alone in your state? Coyotes don't have any protections under Illinois law, so they can be killed year-round in unlimited numbers and using almost any method. And if you haven't seen, Project Coyote has 2 films about wildlife killing contests. The most recent one was released this year. If you haven't watched it, it's incredibly difficult to watch, but incredibly powerful. And you can see all of the cruel and really inhumane ways that people in this country will kill coyotes. But coyotes are unprotected in many, many states. It's also true that the state governments generally have focused on protecting wildlife for the benefit of hunters. So that includes things like deer and turkey. And as I mentioned at the outset, it's long-standing been the case for hundreds of years that predators were viewed as a nuisance, as vermin, and to be eliminated or eradicated without any regard to the place they might serve in their ecosystems. And in many states, authority over wildlife is delegated to a Fish and Game Commission, which is typically citizens that are appointed by the governor and often are hunters, trappers, or ranchers, people who are interested in hunting. And there have been few scientists or conservation interests represented at that table. This statistic blows me away every time I read it. There are 500,000 or more coyotes killed every year in this country. That's one a minute. In addition, the USDA Wildlife Services and other state wildlife agencies kill bobcats, coyotes, grizzly bears, mountain lions, and wolves using a variety of lethal methods on behalf of ranchers. One of these that breaks my heart is denning, which is actually killing pups and young in the dens. Project Coyote has a nationwide coalition at this point with more than 50 state and national organizations that continues to grow. And these are all sorts of organizations that recognize that wildlife killing contests are unjustified and should be banned everywhere. So there are, I'm happy to say, a number of states, including my home state here, California, that have banned wildlife killing contests. And so I've got a map up, you can see the list, but Arizona, California, Colorado, Massachusetts, which is actually where I'm originally from, New Mexico, Vermont, and Washington have all banned wildlife killing contests. And Project Coyote right now has a petition pending and a national campaign to ban wildlife killing contests on federal land. And so I think that's something that will hopefully be introduced in US Congress sometime soon. I know it's pending. There are other states that are considering legislation, and in a couple of them, fingers crossed, that legislation banning wildlife killing contests will go all the way through. In Oregon, it's passed the House and is next up in the Senate. And my understanding is that Maryland is still awaiting the governor's signature, but hopefully that's going to happen sometime very soon. And Maryland would become the next state to ban wildlife killing contests. New Jersey and New York are also considering legislation, and Virginia and Nevada have consideration of regulatory change. So lots of places are working on this issue. New Mexico banned coyote killing contests on public lands. In terms of stopping wildlife killing contests, another strategy that's been employed is lawsuits. So in certain states, because there's a prize for the killing contest, they have been deemed to be in violation of a state gambling law, and then they would have to shut down. However, if they take away the prize, the killing contests could continue. So it's a limited use in terms of a tool. The ideal language is for a bill banning wildlife contests is here on the screen, which would say that it's unlawful for any person to organize, sponsor, conduct, promote, or participate in any contest, competition, tournament, or derby with the objective of taking wildlife for prizes or other inducement or for entertainment. And then you'll see there's some compromises. There are some species like fish and deer that ethical hunters consume these species, and those tournaments have a long history, so perhaps there's an exception for that. And then sometimes there's a ban on certain species, but it's never a ban on hunting. To be clear, this is not a ban on hunting, and this is not anti-hunter. There are a number of ethical hunters who support wildlife killing contest bans. Nor does this preclude killing a particular animal if, unfortunately, there was a coyote that had been habituated to humans and was approaching humans for food. Nothing in this language would preclude having to put that animal down if that was the only solution. So things you can do to end wildlife killing contests. There's a list here. One of them is what I just mentioned. So ban those contests, either with a statute or through agency regulations through the State Fish and Wildlife Commission. It's also possible to have local resolutions condemning wildlife killing contests. So you can do that at the city or county level. You can write letters to the editor of local and national publications. So many people have no idea that these contests exist. So just writing a letter to the editor and shining light on it is incredibly valuable. You can host a screening of the two films that I've mentioned. So Killing Games, which is the 2017 film I believe you all watched ahead of today, or Wildlife Killing Contest, which is the 2021 film. As I said, super powerful, very difficult at times to watch, but really, really, really valuable. So if you share that information and share that film with other people, they too will understand and see the impact of these contests. So encourage you to have a movie night with your friends and talk about this to see the other film. And the last thing you can do is spread the word on social media. On my Instagram account, when I post photos of predators, there's a hashtag Stop the Kill that Philippe D'Andrade, who's at Comfort Theory, the filmmakers in this 2021 movie, have started putting on social media. And so whenever I post a photo of a coyote or a bobcat or a fox, I hashtag Stop the Kill, and just trying to use social media as a way to educate people and have them understand what's happening to the wildlife in your area. In terms of conflict, because like I said, that's one of the rationales that people sometimes use for wildlife killing contests, but wildlife killing contests don't solve any conflicts with wildlife. So prevention is the way that you can help address if there are conflicts with wildlife. Prevention is the key. So when I do, normally in non-COVID times, I do public presentations. I go to classrooms, I do community centers, and a lot of what I talk about is coexistence, how to coexist with coyotes and bobcats and foxes, all of which have found their way, not just in wilderness areas, but into suburban and at times even urban areas. So we need to find a way to coexist. And coexistence would include, you can see the list on your screen, but never feeding wildlife. Project Coyote has a saying, a fed coyote is a dead coyote. And that is indeed true. The fastest path to an animal end up having to be euthanized is to have it be acclimated to getting food from humans. It leads to conflict, often leads to car strikes. If people are feeding an animal near the roads, those animals will then habituate and be along the roads and are much more likely to be hit by a car. Another way to coexist is to remove things that would attract wildlife. So keeping your pets inside, not leaving garbage out that's accessible, keeping pet food and pet water inside as well, so that there's not a source of food. Supervising pets is also key. So even though the predators that we're talking about don't view your pets as a food source, they might view them as a source of competition for a territory, or it's possible, especially with coyotes and cats or very small dogs, it's possible, not likely, but possible that they might kill them. And so we need to respect that the coyotes and bobcats and foxes were here first. And we need to keep our pets on leashes to prevent them from running at wildlife or running towards dens. And we need to keep them inside or be outside with them if they're out in our yards. Leaving your animals out unattended, especially late in the day or overnight or early in the morning, is invitation for conflict. Another way to help with coexistence is to keep coyotes wary, which is to say, if you're approached by an animal, you want to what we say is haze them, right? You want to make loud noises, be big. When I talk to little kids, I say, make Superman arms. You want them to not want to be around you. You don't want them to habituate to humans. And you can appreciate them from a distance. So all of the photos of predators that I've shared are photos that I've taken, but I shoot with a very long lens. So even though those photos look like I'm right there in that animal's space, I'm actually quite a long ways back and shooting from a distance. And the last thing you can do to promote coexistence and appreciation is share this information with anyone that you talk to. I talk to people all the time when I'm out hiking or in my neighborhood, when people mention seeing a coyote or a bobcat or have a question. So you can educate anytime. It doesn't have to be a presentation or a letter to the editor. It can just be casual conversation with your neighbors about coexistence. Ranching with Wildlife is a program that Project Coyote has. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because I want to make sure we have time for questions, but there are a number of ways to coexist and ranch and not use lethal methods to control coyotes. This quote from a chairman in Oregon really resonates with me, which is that if you ask people why they participate, what the reason is that they participate in wildlife killing contests, there's no good answer for why it's okay to do this. So that level of disregard for life is, in my view, personally, unacceptable. And then I want to leave you with the same concept in a way that I started with. I was an anthropology major in college, so maybe that's why this is one of my favorite quotes. But I think it's super important, again, to realize that you have so much power and you have a voice, and it can be overwhelming sometimes, the problems in this world, whether they're local, national, or global. But never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. And I've seen this time and again. So I want to really encourage all of you to take your voice and find your group of committed citizens to work with on whatever issue lights you up, whatever you find passion about, and make a change. This world will be better for it. So with that, I'm going to go to my last slide and I can take questions. Benicio, if you have any questions for me.
Yeah, so just before I start, I'd like to let everyone know if you have questions, the easiest thing is to put them in the Q&A or in the chat, and I can read them. So I have 2 questions here.
Great.
Are most of these contests in rural areas?
So let's see, I'd have to go back to the slide. I mean, yes, I think the short answer is yes. You'll have to forgive me. I don't live in Illinois, and I've never lived in Illinois, but I think when you look at this map, we'll get there. Most of those places, I believe, would qualify as rural, but I would let perhaps Benicio, you have a better sense of Illinois' geography than I do.
Yeah. Then another question. Well, yeah, it seems like they're all in rural areas. I'm not very familiar with all of it, but yeah.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. It's okay.
So excellent presentation. Is it possible to make it available to educate more people?
And say the name of who's asking.
From Francine.
So thank you very much. I've done other webinars for Project Coyote and other organizations, and they are then posted on the website. So I don't know, Kaylee, and I don't know if you know yet whether this will be made available either on the Project Coyote website or to people with New Trier. I do, like I said, I do other webinars, and other people at Project Coyote do webinars. And if you go to the Project Coyote website, there's a media tab, and under that there are webinars. So I've done one on bobcats that's up there, and one on ethical photography of predators. And there are other people who've done them on things like wolves, other species. So Kaylee, I don't know if you want to jump in on that.
I will check with Camilla, and Benicio, I'll let you know on Monday.
All right, sounds good. Then a question from Randy Myers. What would ethical hunting look like?
So ethical hunting, and so I'm going to start with the notion that some people believe that eating meat is unethical or inappropriate. Other people would say that it's, humans are omnivores and eating meat is part of our diet. So I'm going to put that debate to the side in terms of whether we should all eat meat or not. But ethical hunting usually would be someone who is knowledgeable about the species that they're hunting. So typically that's game species that they're eating. But I've spoken to ethical hunters who will generally either not take females or will take males, but only when they think they're of a certain age. They don't want to eliminate the younger population. So there are hunters who are very careful about the animals they take, and then use them. So that's the other piece of it, right? Part of what makes wildlife killing contests so abhorrent is they're literally just, and I took out, we have other images that are just piles of carcasses on the ground at the end of the contest. Like, I mean, literally, because you can't, as gruesome as this sounds, when an animal has been shot, you generally can't use the fur. So that's why they trap them, so that there's less damage to the fur or to the pelt. So they're not even using the pelts. Not that I'm justifying that as a use, but I mean, there's literally no use. These wildlife killing contests, they pile up the carcasses at the end, and that's the end of it. It's just a wanton waste of life.
All right, and another question from Randy Myers. The sheep and cattle rate of mortality, does that include human killings for lamb/beef?
No.
All right. And now a question from the other Francine Brown. I live near a public park in Chicago, and there have been coyotes living in the park. What is the best course of action to get help for the coyotes?
That's a great question.
So it's a really interesting, great question. As I mentioned, coyotes and even bobcats and certainly foxes are living in urban and suburban areas. In terms of helping the coyotes, the best way to help them is to educate the neighborhood about coexistence, because a lot of people have a fear. So I don't know if you guys are on Nextdoor, but Nextdoor is often, at least in my neighborhood, the source of what they call urgent alerts, where people say coyote spotted and, cause, some level of panic around the fact that there's a coyote. You don't need to panic about a coyote being there. They will find their own, whether it's gophers or voles or rabbits, they'll find their own source of food, or they'll move on. But if humans leave their garbage out, leave pet food out, leave sources of water, or hopefully not, but feed them directly, then you're inviting them to stay in a place that doesn't necessarily have food that supports them naturally, and you're inviting conflict. So the best way to help coyotes in your neighborhood is really to talk about the list of things that I mentioned towards the end about coexistence. And the Project Coyote website has lots of great resources. You can write letters to the editor. You can put up signs in your neighborhood like, we're so lucky to have these coyotes as our wild neighbors, and here's some ways we can help them and we can coexist. I think that's the best way to help any wildlife, really, is to educate people and to make sure that their wild nature is respected.
All right. If there's no more questions, I think that we can probably wrap it up for today. Thank you so much, Sarah, for the presentation.